Greetings everyone, peace to you all. Welcome to another episode of Praiseworthy Reviews, where we go through video games to see if they're excellent and commendable. Today we will be reviewing The Stone of Madness, a real-time tactical stealth game by the Game Kitchen and Techo Studios. As usual, we'll be evaluating the game based on 5 criteria: fun factor, educational value, cultural value, spiritual value, and cost. For context, I want to thank Tripwire Interactive for providing me with a review copy, and I finished both campaigns to the credits. I completed them before the first patch, so there have been some balance changes and, more importantly, bug fixes since then. So without further ado, let's jump in. The gameplay of Stone of Madness is split up into stealth and exploration in the daytime and survival management at night. The real-time stealth, kind of in the vein of Metal Gear Solid but in 2D, is surprisingly fun. It uses standard stealth gameplay elements like vision cones, sound detection, light and darkness, crouching, and hiding inside certain furniture. A lot of the gameplay involves gathering resources, exploring maps, avoiding the detection of guards, and accomplishing mission objectives, which usually involves getting to certain locations and interacting with different objects or people in specific ways. Each of the 5 characters has their own unique traits, skills, and fears. As far as traits go, only Leonora can use ropes, only Alfredo and Leonora can read, Eduardo can't talk but can build bridges, only Agnes can gather plants but she can't climb, both Agnes and Amelia can't move people, and only Amelia can fit through holes. Each character also has unique skills. For example, Alfredo the priest can wear a priest disguise and investigate clues. Leonora can do direct violence and pick locks. Eduardo can use crowbars and make bridges. Agnes can cast spells, and Amelia can pick pockets and set traps. As I record this review, patch 1 is being released to rebalance the character skills. In my experience, Alfredo and Leonora have much better skills compared to the other 3, and this seems to be reflected by the buffs to the skills of the other 3 characters. Each of them also has a fear, like how Alfredo suffers from the fear of violence and corpses, Leonora is afraid of fire, etc. These are varying in terms of how difficult they are to deal with.
Eduardo was crouched down in a dirty corner. The terror he felt towards the darkness had paralyzed him.
Eduardo's fear of darkness is particularly difficult to manage. As the characters are exposed to things they fear, their sanity drops. If their sanity goes below 0, they suffer a disorder. Some disorders, like Eduardo's cowardice, are not really a problem, but others, like Agnes's rheumatism, can be, well, crippling. At night, each character has actions to prepare for the next day, such as craft items, reduce suspicion, heal up, and most importantly, recover sanity. Only Amelia and Leonora can recover sanity. Only Alfredo and Agnes can heal. Only Eduardo and Leonora can reduce suspicion. Only Eduardo and Agnes can make things, while only Alfredo can study, increasing knowledge. This knowledge is used for the progression of the game. Progression of the game is mostly based on skills progression, called revelations, that can be bought with said knowledge. Some skills are must-haves, while others are not necessary. This is not a big deal, but skill descriptions should be more clear. There were a few skills that did not do what I thought they did, especially for night skills. While the stealth gameplay was very engaging, there were a number of issues that prevented the game from really taking off for me. I mainly played with the controller and it was difficult at times. Controls are not intuitive and it's difficult to switch between skills, especially if you have to switch characters first. The autosaving is also not user-friendly, but it's understandable that they want to prevent save scumming. The problem with this though is that the game has no option to restart at the beginning of the day. Reloading wastes a lot of time because you have to exit to the main menu before reloading. This game can require numerous attempts in certain challenging sequences, and it can take a surprisingly long time to restart after catching unlucky breaks. Even more frustrating are the glitches, where sometimes guards are suddenly alert even if you are not performing a prohibited action or in a prohibited area. I've also experienced getting stuck in a wall or having certain conditions be reset after a cutscene, which can drive you mad if you had accomplished difficult sequences earlier in the day only to encounter a bug that forces you to restart the day. I hope many of the glitches are now fixed, but based on my launch day experience, I'm going to give The Stone of Madness 3 stars for fun factor. In terms of educational value, The Stone of Madness doesn't provide much value in terms of motor skills. Aside from the difficulty of switching characters quickly, motor skills do not really come into play. There's some interesting strategy in terms of picking your team each day to make sure you'll be able to tackle the day's objectives. If you pick a bad combination, you can usually just wait it out until the next night, unless you're already doing badly, then it can be difficult to recover. In fact, The game is just difficult all around, even for someone like me who usually plays on hard. While I normally enjoy a good challenge, I only played on the normal difficulty because I'm not particularly good at stealth games, but even on normal, the game was frustratingly difficult. The developers probably already understand how frustrating it is because almost all of the balance changes released in patch 1 are designed to make the game easier. But when I played it, the difficulty was maddening. Low sanity leads to disorders, which makes everything more difficult, which leads to more failed attempts at objectives, which leads to lower sanity, which makes everything more difficult. You get the idea. The game does very little scaffolding. You're not given a map or a compass or a HUD indicating where you're supposed to go, and key terms are not highlighted. You're expected to read carefully and explore the maps to figure out what you are supposed to do. This type of exploration and trial and error would normally be fine, except that the game mechanics essentially discourage you from doing this. In both campaigns, I started out trying a more casual style, where I was just exploring different rooms and looting different containers, but slowly your sanity drains away. It was so bad that I was forced to restart the campaign. In later attempts, I would then focus on the objectives with little exploration, even when I was curious, and this led to much better results. While I didn't like the difficulty of the game, I did like the factual knowledge you can learn, especially about Saint Dymphna from the statue. I kind of wish that Saint Jerome, Saint Cyprian, the Franciscans, and the Jesuits might have had similar treatments where you can learn a little bit more. I also think a little bit more knowledge on the rules of the abbot, a mother superior, or an inquisitor might be interesting for those not familiar with the Catholic traditions. Overall, I'm going to give the game 4 stars for educational value. The art of the Stone of Madness is attractive and generally pleasant. While I really don't see what the game means with its marketing on how the art is inspired by Francisco de Goya, even if the subject matter may be, the visual style was still positive to me. In-game animations of character actions like crouching, using skills, or opening containers were natural and smooth. I really enjoyed the cutscenes, which felt somewhat like a throwback to Disney movies from decades past. Simple things like dialogue animation or menu animation was lacking and pretty rough, leaving me feeling like this was some low-hanging fruit that could have easily been polished. The music in the game was generally appropriate, with a piano and string pieces that provide an air of mystery while hinting at a more sinister atmosphere.
I am Father Alfredo Martin, and I have been locked up for trying to expose the corruption in this place.
The voice acting for Alfredo and a certain other character were excellent. It's unfortunate that there wasn't more, but I assume that it had to do with budget. Where the artistic quality really stumbles, though, is the writing. The plot was, in my opinion, simple and perhaps even a little cliché, but the complications that arose to create additional objectives generally made sense, and the endings were generally satisfying. To me, character development was really lacking. Each of the 5 main characters clearly had their own backstory, traits, strengths, and weaknesses, but more character development could have been incorporated into the narrative during mission objectives. Most of the dialogue in the game felt a little wooden, which was a genuine shame given the great writing for the intros and the endings.
It is the year of our Lord, 1799.
The setting is captivating. I love the Catholic monastery during the Spanish Inquisition, and I think the setting was easily the strongest part of the writing. While it's still too early to talk about sales numbers, I do think that there are a number of hurdles that will prevent the game from having a strong cultural impact, such as the frustrating difficulty and the rough technical condition the game is in. Overall, I'm going to assign the game 3 stars for its cultural value. There is some negative content in Stone of Madness, but honestly it's not too bad. There is blood and violence, and even though it makes the game pretty difficult, you don't actually have to kill anyone. Leonora cuts herself if she does kill someone, and there's one sexual encounter, but it's not particularly graphic. The most intense part of the game is probably the description of some of the evil acts performed by some of the villains. One weird aspect of the game is the character of Agnes, who seems to be Catholic but also practices witchcraft, and this is handled with a lot of ambiguity. As far as positive content is concerned, while some of the characters are hypocrites or corrupt church leaders, there's definitely positive portrayal of the Christian faith from some of the more religious characters like Alfredo or Elvira.
May God have mercy on our souls, or whatever is left of them.
I personally liked how some of Alfredo's skills include blessing, basically meaning casting out evil spirits, and preaching sermons, although I would have liked to see some scripture when he's preaching. ESRB rates this as mature 17+, but I feel that that is not really necessary. While there are some horrific elements in the story, it's not really that graphic, even for someone who doesn't generally like horror, and is probably okay for teens. I think the messages and the themes of the game are very positive, but they are not as well developed as I would like them to be. For more analysis on the themes of the game, check out the Biblical Themes video for this game. Overall, I'm going to give the Stone of Madness 4 stars for spiritual value. For the time poor, the game can be completed in about 20 to 25 hours if you really know what you are doing. It took me about 35 hours to finish the prologue and both campaigns, but there was definitely a lot of time added on due to glitches and significant amounts of waiting for loading screens. For the time rich, there's not a lot of additional things to do except to explore and maybe find a few optional secrets. I kind of wish there were a few standalone puzzles or challenges, something like the VR sequences in Metal Gear Solid. The Stone of Madness retails for $29.99 USD, which I feel to be reasonable but not great in value. Overall, based on the content value, narrative accessibility, and asking price, I'm going to give the game 3 stars for cost. The Stone of Madness gave me a bunch of mixed feelings. On the one hand, much of the gameplay was quite engaging. Attempting to sneak your way around the monastery, performing all sorts of weird tasks to expose the sins of the corrupt and escape the evil place was very entertaining. On the other hand, the game just doesn't seem to live up to its potential. Not only do its technical glitches frustrate the player, there are many missed opportunities in terms of deeper skill systems, a more connected and cohesive campaign, or deeper and more meaningful character backstories. Perhaps it's unfair for me to think this way, but having played Tactical Breach Wizards in recent months, it made me wish that each of the 5 characters were further developed with more interesting backstories, clever dialogue, and maybe even mini campaigns of their own. I really want this game to do well because I would like to see a sequel where some of the jank is fixed, the game is a smoother experience, and there is deeper strategy and gameplay, but I worry that many people may not have the patience that I did to enjoy the gem under the roughness and the lack of polish. Based on the criteria discussed in the video, I subjectively assigned the Stone of Madness the rating of Sale Selection. That's all I have for you in this video. Bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. If this video blessed you in some way, please consider watching some of my other videos, subscribing, or sharing with me some of your thoughts in the comments below.